This week, a big announcement over UMKC's plans to move its marquee arts programs downtown.
I am pleased to announce to you today that the Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation has committed a $20 million leadership grant to UMKC's Conservatory of Music and Dance towards the Downtown Campus for the Arts project.
Philanthropist Julia Irene Kaufman announcing the $20 million challenge grant that she hopes would jumpstart what would be a $90 million project to move the UMKC Conservatory of Music and Dance downtown. That's $70 million more, though, to raise. Where's that money coming from, Kevin?
Well, the state of Missouri, 2 years ago, the legislature approved legislation that authorized matching funds for a university building, which this would be. So really the nut that they have to get is $20 to $25 million in private funding. That is, of course, if the state of Missouri follows through on their promise. They didn't allocate any money for this. A lot of people thought Julia, they needed a major donor to break the ice. And Julia stepped up, which she did famously for the Performing Arts Center. And this does have a lot of symbiotic benefit to both facilities. So the hope is now that Julia has said, here's the first $20 million, that some of the other major donors in our community will say, okay, it's gotten the stamp of approval, it's worth me investing in. And the folks at UMKC say they've had some serious conversations with potential donors who are going back to their, quote, boardrooms to get authorization to go ahead. Nothing on the magnitude of what Julia did, but certainly this project needed a patron, and as she did with the Performing Arts Center, she's come through aided, and she's the first to admit this with the incredible resources that she inherited from her from Ewing Kaufman and that whole legacy.
This is one of the big 5 ideas of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. This is one of their big ideas that they wanted to have. Yes, this would move downtown, but why would this benefit downtown?
Well, I think one of the reasons Julia Irene Kaufman is interested is because she wants to see the continued growth of the Performing Arts Center, and the argument, of course, would be if you move music education downtown, that it would give more use to the center and really create more of an arts community, which I think has been argued about in this area for decades. It is moving it a little bit away from the Art Institute and some of the other non-performing arts centers in Kansas City. So. And you always do sort of wonder, Nick, whether anyone ever sits in a room and says, where's the best place for all of this stuff to go? We do tend to move around a little bit in Kansas City, but she obviously, I think, wants to boost the potential for success at the Performing Arts Center, which is really her signature accomplishment.
Some people have compared it, and I'm sorry, Stacey, to how the Juilliard School has developed a relationship with Lincoln Center, where you bring in these great students, that you have this wonderful facility, it brings in better faculty, it brings in better students, and again, you bring 600 or 700 people into an area around the Performing Arts Center. They're also talking about student housing as part of this whole thing. It adds a vibrancy that, the Star being right in the middle of the Crossroads area, I can attest firsthand that it definitely could use a little bit more liveliness during the daytime. It certainly just brings more energy to downtown.
The new SoftBank Casino could also do that. Stacey.
But really, other than the students coming there in the synergy with the Performing Arts Center itself, I don't know that it does benefit that area of the city a whole lot. I mean, we're talking about a niche market. So are you saying that there are going to be more coffee shops? Are you saying there are going to be more restaurants? Do you say it's going to bring more traffic into that area other than students? I don't know that it is. And I haven't seen anyone saying that that is something that's going to do other than incubating the arts, but I don't know that the arts bring a whole lot of economic impact to the city.
How about from an economics point of view, Chris Keel?
Yeah, generally speaking, there are 3 things that will drive development in an urban area. There's sports, and we've talked a lot about a downtown stadium, which shouldn't go anywhere. There's the arts, and then there's some kind of a business hub. We've tried the business hub. We're not really going to have a lot of movement of the large corporations to that downtown location. Sports, again, we've kind of passed on, so I think we're dealing with number 3. It can be a very dynamic development for a city, but it has to be large. If you have it broken up the way it is in Kansas City, you don't get that concentration of activity that Stacey was referring to. You've really got to have a critical mass.
Very quickly, it may bring coffee shops and restaurants, but it may take them away from the place where the conservatory is now. I mean, it may be a zero-sum game. And I think that's what some people in Kansas City.
I was also surprised, Kevin,
Yeah.
they also didn't announce the actual location.
Well, they've got two locations that the one is directly to the east, which, by the way, Julia owns a good 2/3 of that. It's a nice green field. And then also to the south, which actually another great patron of the arts, Shirley Hellsberg, owns a lot of those properties. A lot of friendly owners around there, but both locations are right next to the Performing Arts Center. And I beg to differ with these guys. I do think that it will bring more energy, more activity. What needs to happen, though, is the city, I think, needs to be a bit more proactive about encouraging this, both with incentives and also with zoning.
Well, the mayor was also at that press conference.
Well, and I think there's the hitch for Kansas City taxpayers like me. The mayor said that the city would do whatever is reasonably possible to help. What does that mean? How much
traffic cones to protect people coming in there?
It's money, and it's what the city likes to do. We like to spend money on new shiny things, and then the taxpayers generally get reap no benefit. Just look at 18th and Vine. Just look at the Crossroads area. Just look at the Power and Light District. We spend out millions of dollars and get very little in return. So I think before this goes forward, I'd like to hear a greater assessment of what type of output is the city going to do into this. Infrastructure, tax incentives, and just simply cash that's going to help this move along.
And there are some influential backers who are still concerned about what this does for the UMKC campus and whether this dilutes that institutional campus setting.
And they tried to address that in the press conference, talking about how the fact is that, first, the facility of the conservatory on the campus is overcrowded, and secondly, other departments of the university could certainly fill in that space. One quick thing on the city front, though, and the mayor did bring this up, that the streetcar line that's starting up supposedly this summer could be extended out to UMKC, which would be a great way to link the campus and bring those students back.